Hey guys, welcome to my video on how to explain and really get initialed and signed the Homeowners Association form that we use in our stack of documents. Before I do that, as always, this is really a video series where I review various contracts um, within the real estate profession in Oklahoma. And I put together a pretty comprehensive list of documents and forms that you will need on a typical listing transaction, a buyer transaction, a lease, whether you represent the landlord or the tenant. And I do give this away free to whoever wants it. I think this is pretty helpful. A lot of agents reach out and tell me, hey, I don't really even know what contracts to use for what. So if you are interested in getting this for free, this is my contact information. You can either text me or send me an email. And if you are not already an agent of White Rock Realty in Oklahoma, you could be. You can go to this website here and look at all of what we have to offer, including our fees, commission plans, and all that good stuff. I think that you'll find it pretty compelling, and we're very, very competitive. All right. So without further ado, let's launch into what I have for you here today. So this is the form that I wanted to review today. And this comes right from OREC, Single Family Mandatory Homeowners Association. So here is the backstory. A lot of homes in typical kind of cookie cutter subdivisions will be governed by a homeowners association. Lots of times the homeowner will pay a monthly fee to have that done. And a lot of times that includes certain amenities, and they range from, community swimming pool and place to cook out to just simply they maintain the grounds. All right. So it could run the gamut on what's included. However, it's extremely important that a new buyer gets certain information about that association so that they know going in what they can and cannot do. So some of you might be thinking, well, what could that possibly be? Well, you'd be surprised. Sometimes a homeowner will not tell their agent because they don't think it's a big deal that they have a 30-foot RV that they want to park in their driveway. That might be a no-no inside the homeowners association rules. Some people want to run an Amazon shipping business out of their garage. That might not be allowed. You may only be allowed to have a certain amount of cars in your driveway. Various things. One of the biggies is that a buyer might be purchasing a property to rent out. And that is usually a major part of the homeowners association's rules. So you definitely want to find out whether or not whatever they want to do with that home is allowed. And it's really your job to ask and just say, hey, look, I'm not trying to pry, but just FYI, this home is governed by a homeowners association. And you need to tell me ahead of time what you want to do with the home. Are you looking to rent it out? Are you looking to, and even if they don't want to rent it out today, they may get a job change that takes them out of state, and they may want to rent that house out. Well, better to find out now that that can't be done than later. All right. So this is a pretty straightforward document. There's nothing to fill out. It just requires signatures. But man, there's a lot in here. So it says inspection of common elements and review of documents. Seller or seller's broker, if applicable, within 5 days from the time reference date. So let's just go back. So they got 5 days to get you these documents, you being the buyer, within the period of time that you've referenced as the time reference date. So remember that there's a difference between the date a contract is signed and the date that you as the agent put in as the time reference date. All right, so the time reference date is usually a couple of days uh, after that document signed, because you want to allow time to go back and forth for negotiations. So that time reference date is important. So there's no mistake about it. The seller needs to get to the buyer within 5 days from that date the declaration or any restrictive covenants, bylaws of the homeowners association. So this is going to be this huge stack of papers, and a lot of times it's online. But they need to get that to the buyer within 5 days so that the buyer can look it over to decide whether or not they agree or don't agree. But let's move on. A copy of the Owners Association annual budget reflecting the current monthly assessments for maintenance and common expense allocatable to the property. The project plot plan, unit plan, and rules and regulations adopted by the board of directors of the homeowners association, if any. All right, so this is everything. The financial solvency of the HOA, what the costs are going to be to the buyer on a monthly basis. And sometimes it's quarterly, sometimes it's annual, but it's all going to be in there. Okay. Now, it does, and then goes on to say the buyer, within the time provided in the investigations, inspections, and review paragraph of the contract of sale of real estate. So let's just kind of pause there. It's that time period that you've put in the purchase agreement that says, hey, buyer has X amount of days to inspect the property and do whatever they want to do. The default is 10 days, but in a hot market, it might be less. Okay, so the buyer has to respond within that time period. So it says, the buyer shall examine the documents and make an inspection of those common areas of the project which are maintained and or operated by the owners association. Here's the out. If buyer objects to the provisions of the documents, or if any item of the common elements does not meet the buyer's approval, buyer shall have the right to cancel the contract as provided in the investigations, inspections, and review paragraph of the contract of sale of real estate, okay, and get their earnest money back. All right, so this is a big deal. So this all has to be done and answered to within that time prescribed that was allowed in the IIR paragraph. So let's think about that for a second. The seller has 5 days to give it to them, right? So logically speaking, you want more than 5 days in the investigations, inspections, and review paragraph deadline, right? So make sure that it exceeds 5 days to give everyone time to, get these documents, read them over, and decide whether or not they agree with them. Now, mind you, it can be a lot to read. So the buyer may have legitimate questions. So you want to bake in time for the buyer to ask the HOA questions and make their decision from there. Okay. Then it goes on to say homeowners associations repair obligations. If repairs are required as a result of the inspection accomplished per the investigations, inspections, and review paragraph of the contract of sale of real estate, and if such repairs are the responsibility of the owners association, the seller shall obtain a repair commitment letter from the owners association and subject to lender's acceptance of said commitment letter. The closing shall not be delayed, and buyer and seller agree to close per the investigations and inspections and review paragraph of the contract of sale of real estate. So when would this happen? Well, if the HOA has responsibility over certain things that a buyer wants repaired, that's when this would come into play. So what might that be? Well, I've seen things like sprinkler systems, sidewalks, landscaping, And if the buyer has delivered to the seller a document that says, hey, I want these things fixed, and one or two of those things are the responsibility of the HOA, that's where this comes into play. Okay, so pretty straightforward. And then, of course, the buyer signs it, the seller sign it, and it becomes part of the stack of contracts. All right, so I hope you found this video helpful. And as always, if you have any questions, come and see me.